Welcome back to Bird's Eye View. When it comes to the Orioles, this podcast is your official source for a lack of insight and for baseless opinions. Today is March 11th, 2026, and this is episode 422. My name is Jake English.
And I'm Scott Magnus.
And on this week's show, we're going to talk to Thomas Nestico about stuff.
We'll also let the waves and the winds hit us as we prepare for the future.
And we'll do all that now.
You've probably seen pitching cards posted all over social media dissecting things like arm angle, vertical drop, spin rate, and all kinds of, well, stuff that's important. And one of these individuals who has led this effort to bring greater insight is Thomas Nestico, who runs the website tjstats.ca. And yes, he is Canadian, and yes, he is a Blue Jays fan, but we as Orioles fans are not going to hold that against him too much. Thomas, welcome to Bird's Eye View.
Thank you for the warm welcome, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much. And like I said, really appreciate what you do. And I guess, for those that are unfamiliar with your work, can you describe what is TJ Stats and why were you so inclined to start it and put so much blood, sweat, and tears into website maintenance and data scraping?
Yeah, so TJ Stats, it kind of started off as a passion project, starting in university near the tail end there. I am a structural engineer by trade. I graduated from the University of Toronto as a civil engineer, both for my undergrad and for my master's, but I've always had kind of that love of sports and data. I remember just like in high school when I was younger, I just had spreadsheets, mostly of hockey data. That was like my first main love. I guess you mentioned I'm Canadian, so hockey's definitely surrounded me my whole life. I played it when I was young. I was just, again, always interested in that. And as I kind of learned through my university experience, got more classes in data science, statistics, Python, R. I just became more enamored with data visualization and kind of understand sports. And baseball specifically, it's very data driven. You can break it down to such a discrete level that I just find it so fascinating. With TJ Stats, again, my goal was just to create more of like a portfolio of something that I wanted to do. I'd create a portfolio, maybe potentially work in baseball in the future, but also share that love and passion of data, baseball, and sports together as one. Again, I started off as a hockey account, but it's definitely transitioned, I would say 100% into baseball now. And I just find it fascinating, the sport itself. And I also just like helping people, teaching people. It's good to always connect with others as well. Like you guys reached out. You thought my work was interesting. And again, it's awesome to be here and hopefully help inform some fans who may not be too familiar with some advanced statistics and let them know like why you should be excited about a specific pitcher or in our case, the Orioles.
We know a little bit about, passion projects with this show here. It doesn't, however, help anyone. In fact, you could argue it does just the opposite. Who is it that you hope that this site is for? Who is it that you hope that your work is for? And what impact are you looking to have on baseball fans?
At first, it was just something that I wanted to do myself. I guess my philosophy kind of changed over time, but it always started with, if I think something's cool, other people will probably also think it's cool. That's kind of how I like to view it. And if I'm going to create something, I want to make it worthwhile, something that I'm going to potentially use every day. I'm going to use for my analysis, my insights, my articles that I write. And if I find value in that, hopefully others do as well. And in my opinion, in my, perspective, I hope this can help more casual fans learn a bit more about the advanced statistics and just learning more about baseball itself. Just like something we all we have to start somewhere. And maybe I can help those people get interested in baseball or maybe dive a little deeper into the data and potentially make more exciting content, like strides in the industry and make a name for yourself in the public space. Because again, I love seeing all this work people put out on a daily basis. Some work that's way over my head. Like I don't know some computer vision or modeling things that these other people do. And they're high schoolers, college students. And it's just really awesome to see. I've talked to them. They've cited me as an inspiration. And it's just really great to at least have that positive impact on the community.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we've done this podcast for as long as we have is for that community. But again, I remember us starting back in 2012 and looking at sites like Baseball Reference, Fangraphs. I remember going and looking at Brooks Baseball pretty much on a daily basis and trying to do analysis from that. And it's just been so interesting over that period of time to see StatCast come to be. I don't think I would have ever expected for like there to be like a StatCast broadcast on ESPN2, but getting to like know people in the community such as yourself. We've also have a good relationship with Alex Fast from Pitcher List. And again, it's really great to get people's different views in terms of how they see things, how they interpret the data, and what they're looking for. So, we've gone into our audience in terms of some, well, I guess maybe new age-ish stats, but again, they're pretty dated at this point in terms of stuff like WOBA, BABIP does as well, FIP, Sierra. But certainly looking at the amount of data that we're able to scrape on a daily basis, that especially on your site, giving live views, there are certain stats that are out there right now that are coming in through, StatCast and through MLB Advanced Media that are really helping to allow the fan and not just the organizations to really make dissection and analysis right there on the spot. So I was wondering if we could go through a few of those stats and you give us a quick, synopsis in about a minute of like what it is and why should the common fan really care about it. And one that I think has really gained some noise as an individual stat over the past few years is induced vertical break, or IVB. So can you give us a quick synopsis of what is induced vertical break and why that may be important when we're looking at certain pitches?
Yeah, so induced vertical break, for those that aren't familiar with it, pitch movement can be broken down into short form and long form. So long form is basically how much the pitch is dropped from release, essentially, and how much it's moved left and right, is horizontally. So that's the vertical break and the horizontal break. Those sound fairly self-explanatory, where it started, where it ended, and how it moved through the air. That's including gravity. But when you look at induced vertical break, you're looking at the vertical movement of the pitch regardless of gravity. So essentially how much the pitch is moving based off the spin imparted by the pitcher. So when we look at a baseball, and you throw in a baseball and you throw a four-seam fastball, to achieve kind of that ride you see, you impart a lot of backspin on the pitch. So again, the pitchers that have those nice over-the-top releases, say like Trey Savage, Dylan Cease, they are able to kind of rip the ball from the top, and it's able to produce that backspin to make it have that illusion of ride, or it's like defying gravity. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, it's topspin. That's when you have these like big looping curveballs that just drop, essentially. Like think of Clayton Kershaw's curveball. He's able to impart that topspin on the pitch that it's just falls, compared to, say, a pitch that's just going straight down the middle. You want to think of it as called a bullet slider, but the most intuitive way to think of it is like a football, the spiral of a football. That spiraling action helps it stabilize in the air, so it's not moving left or right, up and down. It's basically going wherever you throw it, it's going to go in that nice parabolic arc and land where you want it to. But the importance of induced vertical break is, again, with respect to fastball specifically, that is very important because creating that illusion of ride. We see, again, those really, really good fastballs are able to, say, Brian Wu, he is an incredible fastball. It doesn't have that induced vertical break as you would see a pitcher that it gets really over the top, but he's able to generate a lot of ride on the pitch from a very low slot. So he creates this very flat angle that's kind of deceives batters. Specifically for fastballs, induced vertical break is important. And then when you look at a changeup, looking at kind of that difference, the differential in your fastball to your changeup, you were able to kind of that huge gap between the two pitches. Drew Anderson, he was signed by the Tigers. I think he pitched in the NPB last year. He has a massive differential between his fastball and his changeup, and the changeup has been absolutely eviscerating batters this spring. He's definitely a pitcher I'm really excited to watch for this season. But yeah, induced vertical break for fastball specifically is definitely one thing you want to look at.
Yeah, and I think this is important. Again, people talk about the velocity as killer, but you're absolutely right. When you start looking at forcing fastballs, IVB is a really important standpoint to look at in pairing with velocity. It's great when you can get 98 miles per hour, but if your IVB is subpar, it's going to be a more straight and easier fastball to hit, and it's not going to have that vertical rise. Something to kind of watch out for, not just on the velocity standpoint, but on the IVB standpoint. Another thing that I think is interesting as a common fan is when people watch batters go out there and they swing at a bad pitch, and people are like, oh, he swung at a bad pitch. But one metric that I think is really interesting is chase percentage, and why chase percentage can tell us more so of maybe it wasn't just swinging at a bad pitch, but maybe there's something else there in terms of how the pitcher approaches a certain pitch in terms of a deception. So can you give us a little bit of where chase percentages of use and how it potentially can teach us that a pitcher is pitching with better deception?
Yeah, so chase percentage, for those that aren't familiar, it's essentially just how much a player, I guess if you're looking at a pitcher's perspective, how often the batter swings at a pitch outside the zone. So again, higher is better for a pitcher. So essentially, you can say that as kind of a measure for deception, but it also helps with kind of command and also the way they use their pitches. The pitches like fastballs, they're not really there to generate those chases. Like you want to, again, attack the zone with your fastball. They're going to be in the zone a lot of time, maybe at the top of the zone. But batters typically aren't fooled too much when they're going outside the zone. It's when you're looking at, say, your changeups or your sliders or your curveballs that are around the zone. That you want to be in that shadow zone, which is kind of that edge of the strike zone, both just on the inside and just on the outside there. And the importance of looking at O-swing or chase percentage is, again, that's how you limit your walks. Again, you want batters to swing at your bad pitches. Again, not all of them are going to be bad. They're designed to be placed on the outside of the zone or just not there just because of how they move. Like it's sometimes really hard to control your 85 mile an hour sweeper that moves 20 inches to the left and goes down like 5 inches. It's again, pitching is hard. I'm always so fascinated with how these pitchers are able to even just get close to that tiny little zone they show on your screen when you're watching the game. The best pitchers in the league are able to, again, deceive those batters. We see pitchers like Cole Ragans or Garrett Crochet. They have really, really good fastballs, but they can supplement it with some very strong secondaries. And it also kind of setting them up. Like, again, your fastball, you're going to pound them in the zone, and then you're ahead in the count, 2 strikes or whatever. The batter kind of needs to stay wary. They got to be there to make sure they don't strike out. But then you hit them with a kind of a wicked changeup or a wicked slider and on the outside of the zone, and they look absolutely foolish because maybe they think they change a fastball is coming. But it's definitely a very important metric. It is basically the driver of the walk rate for both a batter and a pitcher. The more you can get a batter to swing at your mistakes, the better. That's essentially what chase percentage is looking at there.
So one thing you'll discover this evening that our listeners are already familiar with is that Scott's the brains of the operation.
That is not true whatsoever.
So I'm going to ask the first of what will be several dumb questions. And specifically when it comes to chase percentage, either as a pitcher or a batter, is there a statistically relevant point in which that stops measuring good or bad fortune and starts to measure things like deception or, if you're a batter, good observation skills?
You're talking like effectively wild, basically.
Yeah, I mean, at what point do we know a chase percentage is effectiveness and not the beneficiary of good fortune?
Yeah, like if you look at a picture like Blake Snell, from basically looking at his walk rates, you might think that he doesn't have good command. Maybe you could think that too, but he essentially doesn't throw pitches down the middle. He knows not to give opposing batters that chance to deal damage against them. So he runs very, very high chase rates, even though his walk rate is very high too. He doesn't throw many pitches in the heart of the zone. He's forcing these batters to make these tough swings. So you can add that too. Like Blake Snell has that deception factor. He's a lefty, he throws pretty hard. He has a wicked changeup. So at a certain point, after you have so many pitches or whatnot, because again, when you're doing data analysis, you're trying to be wrong less often. And the more information you have, the better you can be at doing that. So again, once we start accruing all this data and looking at, say, something like a heat map, and then their chase rates or whatnot, seeing how they utilize their pitch and their usage as well. When are they using them? Are they using them in 2 strikes? Are they using them at the start of the count? Are they using them in full counts or whatnot? So it definitely is important. It's not the only factor. I think deception is going to be tied to, hopefully, when we get more information regarding something like, again, we have arm angle for releases, but maybe we have something like oculation, like how well a pitcher is able to hide the ball.
Correct. There was a whole standpoint like Eno and Alex Fast were doing a thing about like tunneling, I think back in the day on Baseball Prospectus. And I think that was a really interesting standpoint to be like, as people are coming out with a similar arm angle, is there an ability to create that deception, especially as the ball breaks halfway down? I think Skeens is a really great example of that when he's throwing his 4-seam versus a sinker, where it's already, halfway to the plate and then it's kind of moving at that point, which is really interesting from a tunneling standpoint.
I'm just interested in the concept of trying to be wrong less often. That's not something we do here.
Especially as Orioles fans. So, Thomas, like, I think one of the other things that is really interesting from a statistical basis is the kind of breakout of Stuff Plus. And again, there's been a lot of folks that have come out with Stuff Plus, but you have your own metric around Stuff, and it's TJ Stuff Plus. Can you talk to us a little about Stuff metrics and why they matter and kind of disseminate their importance to the casual fan, and maybe how it ties back to some of those conversations we just had in terms of vertical break, velocity, and movement?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Stuff Plus, essentially, my version, TJ Stuff Plus, it's a model which measures the effectiveness of a pitch from essentially just its characteristics alone. So we're looking at stuff like horizontal break, induced vertical break, its spin rate, the release points, the velocity. Again, velocity is very important as well. So the reason why it's such an important metric, at least early in the season, is that it's more predictive in a very small sample compared to metrics such as strikeout rate or strikeout minus walk rate, or even something like WOBA or FIP. What it essentially does, it strips away the noise that of a pitcher, essentially. Pitchers, they're all shapes and sizes. They all have different levels of command, all different levels of velocity and whatnot. But now we're just looking specifically at how their pitch moves through space. Don't care about where it's going. Just want to know kind of that ceiling of that pitch's kind of effectiveness. And once you strip that all away, you can get a pretty good understanding of a pitcher's arsenal and potentially their effectiveness in a very small sample. Say like even like 40, 50 pitches, you have pretty good signal about if this pitch is going to perform well at the major league level. Of course, there's a lot of other factors involved in that, such as, again, command, deception, all those different factors and sequencing as well. Like there's just so many other things, but the magic of Stuff Plus and just looking at the characteristics of the pitch is, again, you get, and it's such a very small sample, you can learn a fair bit about a pitcher. And I find that really interesting. And having a model to do this, to kind of calculate it and assess it, you can create kind of a database, a leaderboard of all these pitches and kind of compare them against one another, see if any of them specifically stand out. Or if you're looking at a pitch that performs really well, and then you can kind of understand, and it has a very low pitch grade though, you understand why is it performing well. Maybe there's something to do with it's a unique pitch. The pitch, no, he's the only person really that throws it. So maybe the model just isn't picking up its features properly or its characteristics. Or maybe he's just a ridiculous command artist. He's able to just paint it all over the zone. So Stuff Plus, especially in spring training, early in the season, and pitchers you've never seen before as well. That's where the value of it, like new pitches and even these rookies or prospects that we haven't seen them, you don't have any data on them. You see them quickly and be like, okay, this guy, according to the data, has an incredible fastball. Let's see it in action. And lo and behold, it probably is going to hold up well if the data is good.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a standpoint of like there's a lot of correlation data between Stuff Plus and offensive production. I think folks that have, traditionally higher Stuff Plus generally kind of limit WOBA. But like you said, there are pitchers out there that don't have great Stuff Plus, but still do really great. And I'll bring up a name, and I'm sure you're familiar with him being a Blue Jays fan, but like Chris Bassett now being on the Orioles is probably a good example of that, as someone that is not dominating from a Stuff Plus standpoint, but has had very good success in his career of mixing pitches and being kind of a command artist.
Yeah, Chris Bassett is a fascinating choice. Again, you can see someone like Yu Darvish as well. They just have so many different pitches. Like Bassett, I think, has seven or eight. Darvish has 9. Like the graphics I make for them are sometimes they look like a rainbow because there's just so many different colors and pitches on them. It's just always cool to see again and see how they're able to excel doing something that not many other pitchers do. Seth Lugo is another good example with the Royals. Having all those different options and ability to throw the pitches, like Seth Lugo again on the Royals, he has some of the highest spin curveballs, breaking balls in the league. So like his breaking balls, they grade out very well in Stuff Plus. He's able to just get a lot of movement on them. But again, his fastballs again aren't that sharp, so his overall Stuff Plus metrics may seem he's more of like a pedestrian pitcher. But again, just 2 years ago, he was the AL Cy Young finalist. Lost it at Tarek Skubal. Almost impossible to beat that guy in a Cy Young race. But again, it's fun to see how some pitchers are able to outperform their Stuff metrics. I tell people all the time when I use the models, that's just a piece of the puzzle. You don't want to, again, just rely on it solely. It's nice to have. It's nice to know and see again, because I can't watch every game. I can't follow everything. Like if I can just get all 1,000 pitchers who have pitched so far in spring training and just get a nice quick summary of who's has kind of the best pitch characteristics, like like who's throwing the hardest, how's the shape of the fastball looking, who's throwing the hardest sweeper, or why is this changeup like the lowest spin rate splitter or whatnot. It's just a nice way to, you can also kind of categorize pitchers as well. And again, it helps to both see why a pitcher's excelling and also seeing how or why they're excelling with a specific set of traits. Again, as you mentioned, Chris Bassett.
All right, we've name checked him twice now. Chris Bassett, you have some familiarity with him. So both with your analytical sense and with your heart, how am I going to enjoy Chris Bassett pitching for my baseball team in 2026?
Chris Bassett, he is going to be consistent. He might not be that front line ace. I know Kyle Bradish, Tyler Rogers, Trevor Rogers, sorry. They're going to be the guys you're going to be excited to watch. Your number 1, 2. Chris Bassett, he's going to be there. Number 4 starter, number 5 starter. He's going to go out and pitch every 5th game. He's going to give you hopefully 5, 6 innings, 2, 3-run ball. Probably, hopefully all you need. The Orioles offense is one of the best this year. They're going to be very scary to watch as a Blue Jays fan. But Bassett, and he's just going to kind of wow you with just how many different pitches he has. You don't know what's coming next. Again, you have someone like Dylan Cease as an example. With the Padres, he's just fastball, slider. Sometimes they'll throw in that curveball or that weird sinker and changeup he had, but it's mostly just fastball, slider. But with Bassett, he's going to hit you with a fastball. He's going to hit you with a sinker, then a cutter, then a slider, then a curveball. He's just going to throw like the whole kitchen sink at you there. And it's just going to be fun. He's just going to be consistent. And it's definitely something the Orioles need. I think pitching, they kind of addressed it in this offseason. They added a fair bit of arms there. They have some exciting pitching prospects as well, but I think Bassett kind of adds that solid foundation for the team heading this year. And again, consistency. Hopefully he'll eat up a lot of innings as well. That was kind of his whole thing when he was on the Blue Jays. He was just there, pitching, did what he had to do.
When you say consistency, we as Orioles fans, we're used to consistently disappointing. So, it has a different context here, but hopefully he's here to change some of that.
So, Thomas, one of the other things that you mentioned specifically about Stuff Plus is like it's obviously used throughout the industry. And one question I actually had from a fellow podcast area in the Orioles standpoint, which is Orioles The Verge, asked this question of like, how different is like Stuff Plus across like all the sources? So like Eno has his own version, Pitcher List has his own thing, Pitch Profiler has their own Stuff Plus. Like, do you guys get together like once a year in a bar and like compare notes and like, you're going to come out with this model, we're going to come out with this model? Like, how much deviation are we seeing across the industry in your opinion?
I guess what the pitch models are doing they're trying to do the same thing as all the other models. They're just trying to assess the effectiveness of pitch and predict future performance in a very small sample. And from what I've seen, all the models perform similarly well. Again, my model is about a year old now. Like my first iteration was near the end of 2024, and I kind of revamped it, toyed with it again, started 2025, and I kind of left it be. But with the kind of the introduction of arm angle, I know that pitch profiler, Jeremy there, he had an arm angle. I believe, Saris, his team there, they added an arm angle to their model as well. So there's just, I guess, they're all trying to measure the same thing. And reading through talking with them, like I've spoken to Jeremy a ton, and just understanding how his model works and whatnot, similar aspects to mine. They just have different kind of the different algorithm we
Correct.
use. Again, like a decision. I use a gradient boosted decision tree. I believe Jeremy changes up this year. I forget what it is, but my code is all public. I wanted it to be more like a learning experience for me. So if you want to go check it out, I have a whole Medium article. I have 3 on them that kind of goes through both my initial thoughts of it and then my updates, and then includes all the code that I have that I wrote for it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I really do appreciate that. And actually, it's something that I've kind of dived into to kind of get myself up to speed, where I'm doing a lot of work as an engineer at work, specifically doing some predictive modeling with some AI modeling and stuff like that. So it's been a fun area for me to go into your kind of open source data and look at it and get ideas of like, how could I potentially apply this, not just in a hobby setting, but more so in a work setting. So as a personal professional, it's been of great help for me. So I appreciate you kind of making that open source.
You talk about them, getting together in the proverbial bar. I prefer to think of it as the Hall of Justice, like they're the Data Justice League.
I was just thinking more like 19th century scientists used to get together and like compare notes before they put out something. And I thought it'd be cool if they did something like that. Thomas, you mentioned in a small sample size, you can kind of discern certain trends. One of the areas that I think us as Orioles fans are extremely concerned about is the bullpen. And yes, the Orioles did go out and get Ryan Helsley. But if you start looking at the rest of the bullpen, it's kind of a cast off of like waiver wire pickups and trades for cash considerations. Looking at the spring training numbers, there's a lot of kind of minor league depth that has kind of risen to the surface in Anthony Nunez and Cameron Foster, and even former top pitching prospect in the organization, Chase McDermott, who's now been converted over to entirely relief pitching. You mentioned before, like you can make a lot of kind of disseminations even on 40 pitches, but in reality, how much should we be looking into to pitch data? I mean, I think a lot of Orioles fans, including myself, were really excited looking at Anthony Nunez in terms of stuff plus and, the stuff plus across multiple pitches. Should we be getting that excited? Again, if you look at him on a pipeline ranking standpoint, he's a 20th in the organization. Is this someone that we should be looking at and saying, wow, there might be something more there than we thought?
Yeah, I think that's kind of the beauty of kind of both spring training and these models. And in these small samples, you're able to kind of learn a lot about a pitcher. I didn't really know who Anthony Nunez was. We didn't have much data on him. I don't think we had any data on him last year.
Yep, he was in Double-A.
But yeah, so there's no StatCast data there, and that's very limited. And if you see something like Pipeline, they ranked him 20th in the organization. Again, relief pitchers, they're not going to get a lot of hype in general, but there's just not a lot of information out there. But now we can get a pretty good glimpse of what we're seeing with Anthony Nunez. Mid-90s fastball, hitting 96, 97 this spring, and has, again, compared to a slot, again, kind of below average 5'10" slot. Vertical release point, he's getting around 70 inches of induced vertical break with some nice cutting action on it. So those are all the characteristics you want to see from a fastball. And then he pairs that with 4 secondaries. Why is this guy a reliever? Maybe
why is he a reliever? Exactly. Why is he a reliever?
Yeah, looking at the data, maybe he can just be a starter right now. He's dominating in spring. He has a 5-pitch mix. He seems like an exciting arm. And he's definitely ranks near the top of the pitchers this spring training in my model. And the results speak for themselves. Like he should probably make the team. Break camp with the team. I'm not sure if he's on the 40-man roster.
He is on the 40-man roster, but the Orioles are going to send him to the minors for some reason. Maybe it is to turn him into a starter. Just to describe it.
Just to make us sad.
But he is not going to be coming to opening day. He may come onto the organization in April or May at some point. But I wonder if they're going to say, we want to see what he can do over multiple innings, because he hasn't pitched multiple innings in Double-A before. So maybe they're going to drop him into Triple-A with the Triple-A ball and say, go out there and throw 3 innings at a time. And we'll kind of build you up and see if either you're going to be a multi-inning relief pitcher, or if you're just going to be a potential starter in the future.
I think entering spring training, looking at the Orioles depth chart, the relief pitching was definitely the one I was most concerned about. Like with the addition of Bassett and Baz and bringing back Eflin, the starting pitching seemed to be in a solid state.
Potentially somewhat competent is how we look at it.
Yeah, I would say they're more in that middle of the pack range now. Before the offseason, in the early parts of the winter,
bottom 5.
I was looking at this, I'm like,
very
this is
likely
not a playoff team.
Yep,
incompetent.
This is not a playoff team. Now, looking at back, the bullpen was definitely now that main focus. Like they got to solve some stuff here. But with spring training, now we have guys like Grant Wolfram, Cameron Foster. I think Chase McDermott could be a pretty interesting piece there. Last week, I actually had a conversation with Forrest Herman, the director of pitching with the Orioles. We've spoken before, and he reached out to me. He's wanted a quick chat and spoke to him, and he's really excited about the guy like Nunez. Yep. He talked a lot about. He's really excited about Levi Wells. He's looked pretty strong this spring.
I think he's got Levi Wells. I think has like a 107 stuff, TJ stuff plus last time I checked. But yeah, definitely some interesting numbers.
Yeah. So again, I think the Orioles pitching development has definitely probably one of the more sneaky in the league. Forrest pointed out that the Orioles don't usually spend money in the draft on pitchers. And I look back at him other than last year, I think they spent a fourth round pick on a guy. They didn't until 2020, I think, when Kate Povich went early. They just focus on hitting, and they just figure out like someone like Trey Gibson or Michael Ferret now on the Rays. These are later round draft picks that they're able to, like in Trey Gibson's case, he was an undrafted free agent, and they're able to turn him into this top 100 prospect that is, again, struggling a bit this spring, but that's kind of expected. He's going through the motions there. Hopefully he can improve his fastball shapes, but he was one of the fastest rising pitching prospects last season. So I think the Orioles, I guess that deficiency in their bullpen could be made up this season by kind of that plethora of pitching prospects they have. Again, Levi Wells, Nestor Herman, Chase McDermott. I think he can definitely just slot in no problem right now. And it also probably made them a bit more comfortable trading arms like Cade Stroud and Michael Ferret.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, I think the pitching depth is probably the strongest right now on the 40-man than we've seen in several years. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they move, they use options, and how much are they going to rely on these individuals that have no options on the 26-man from a long-term basis. One of the aspects from a bullpen standpoint is, it's a long season, and you're going to have to move and shape it. And what it looks like on opening day is certainly not going to be what it's going to look like in the playoffs. And you can attest from that of seeing Bassett in the bullpen last year in the World Series. So I think it's one of these situations where, yes, it starts off as this, but it's going to look completely different in September and in October.
As Orioles fans, we're accustomed to being offered magic beans and hope. So it's nice to hear that maybe that won't be the case. But on that note of magic beans and hope, if for no other reason, you're here to make sure that my feels are well taken care of. So make my feels good about Shane Baz. He's a player that the Orioles spent some capital to go out and get. You watch the AL East. You also watch the numbers. Tell me something that will make me feel good about Shane Baz being a pitcher for the Baltimore Orioles.
Shane Baz, I think the word potential is a really nice word there. Again, it's always fun to hear that as a fan of a team. But in Baz's case, he was ranked as a top pitching prospect in 2020, 2021. Dealt with a myriad of injuries. He didn't graduate from prospect status until 2024. He was a top prospect for quite a while. And then he kind of settled in, was pretty solid in 2024 when he came back healthy, kind of his first full major league stint. And last year, definitely a lot of inconsistencies. But the Orioles saw what he can bring. He has a high 90s velocity, a wicked curveball, and a pair of secondaries. They all grade out very well in these models. He has the traits to be such an electric pitcher. And I think that's what should excite a lot of Orioles players. And again, talking with Forrest Herman last week, they were super excited. He was a huge fan of Michael Ferret. I know the other guys they traded, they were the recent draft picks. We didn't really get to see them much, but he was a really big fan of Michael Ferret. I'm also a huge fan of him too, but they saw that kind of potential that Shane Baz kind of holds and can see you know what? I think there's more to untap here, because again, he's still a project essentially, because he doesn't have many major league innings. His minor league career was decimated with injuries, and he just has the talent. I think that's what is so exciting about him. And the Orioles, I know the Rays, they always get that praise of having such great player development and whatnot. But I think the Orioles, specifically on the pitching front, have been pretty solid there. And getting to know kind of how they operate a bit, just talking to Forrest there, it seems like he's in the right place to succeed. And it's going to be really fun to watch him. It's going to be pretty frustrating as a Jays fan, but I like to put aside my fandom at some points. If I just see good baseball, I'm you know what? This is awesome. This is going to be fun to watch.
All right, we're going to hold you to that. You're on record. He's going to be fun to watch. I heard that. I choose to hold on to that.
All right, so let's move away from baseball for a second. You mentioned the aspect of you being an engineer, but I've also heard you're a self-proclaimed expert in digital ecology and zoology. So recently there's information that's been published in terms of new developments in an archipelago region where we saw sights and sounds of a new creatures never seen before. So let's get into the details. What are your thoughts on Generation 10 starters in Pokemon?
I think if I'm going to pick one right now, it's going to be Gekwa. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Really? Okay.
I was a Sobble fan in Gen 8.
Yep.
I got Quaxley in Gen 9. I just been more on that water train lately. But I think Gekwa, kind of just calls to me. I don't know. I just like the design there. Pombon, Brow, they look funny. They look silly. I'm excited to see kind of where they go with the evolutions there. Lately, they like those bipedal looks.
Absolutely. Love the bipedal.
So maybe they're just going to be standing up. But I think Gekwa is who I'll be going with for now.
All right. So if looking at Brout, Pomban, and Gekwa, I'm going to ask you to put a Pokey Stuff Plus to each of these creatures. So what are you doing from a Pokey Stuff Plus with each of these creatures?
Since I got to say Gekwa is my number one right now, I'll give it 110.
Oh, that's huge.
That's huge. It's elite right now. Pomban, I think I'll put him number 2. I'll say like 106.
Okay, that's still pretty
there.
good.
It's a little derpy, but it looks cute. That's kind of their whole goal.
Yep.
Be just because I know the starting Pokemon be the ones that kind of gain that attention and that attraction from the fans. And Brout, it just looks silly. I'll give it a 101.
You don't like the eyebrows.
It's just everything about it looks silly. So I'm gonna. People call it looks like an angry bird. So
I can see that.
I can see it.
Yeah, I can see that. Jake, have we completely lost you at this point?
Yeah. If you didn't think that you could shake me with statistical analysis, this part of the conversation might as well have been in a different language.
Like I said, big fan. Looking forward to it. I played the games with my kids growing up. I played it all the way back in 90, 97, and 98 when the first games came out on my Game Boy. Very much looking forward to Gen 10 and again celebrating 30 years of Pokemon. But moving back to baseball, Thomas, we'll kind of
is that what we're here for?
Yes, we're well sometimes. Moving back to baseball, we'll leave it on this one. We couldn't let you off the hook without kind of giving your predictions on this battleground that is going to be the AL East. The AL East looks like it's going to be a juggernaut with the Yankees, the Jays, the Red Sox, and the Orioles. Not to overlook the Rays as well. What's your predictions in terms of how this is going to roll out? Do you think you're going to see 4 teams get into the playoffs, or do you think one of those teams that out of the 4 are going to kind of fall to the side?
From the latest projections I saw on Fangraphs, they have all 4 the 4 top AL East teams making the playoffs, which is kind of unprecedented.
Yep.
That just doesn't happen. But again, looking at the AL Central, I don't think there's really a team there that's doing much. I would say Detroit's probably the best bet because they have the strongest rotation. And then you have the AL West. That's more just will Houston and Texas bounce back a bit because it feels like that's Seattle's division. But in the AL East specifically, I think I'll just say the Blue Jays. I'll just be a homer for a sec.
That's fine.
They'll win the division. I think they're stronger than last season. I know they lost Bichette, but the pitching's better. I really like the additions of Okamoto. They bolster the bullpen. That was definitely one of the biggest issues they had last year. And then I'll go. It's so like the Yankees are just running it back, but it worked for them last year.
They've got a really good player on that team. Let's just go with that.
They do have the AL MVP favorite, one of the best players of our generation, arguably the best.
And the right field wall creeps a foot in every day.
And then I'll go with the Orioles. Again, I like the Red Sox rotation that they got going on there. I just don't know about that offense.
Yeah.
Like, I really like Roman Anthony. Ranger Suarez acquisition felt a little weird, but again, it helps them with their rotation. But it's more so figuring out they have 4 everyday outfielders. One of them's got to go, right? Are they moving Durant? Are they moving Abreu? It doesn't make sense to just have all of them. But no team is really in that realm to trade right now. It feels like all teams are pretty set unless there's a big injury. I know Houston may look to trade Isaac Paredes, but with the injury to Jeremy Pena there, it might not make sense to move him at this point. So I'll say Red Sox 4. Then I guess that leaves the Orioles 3rd and the Rays 5th. Again, the Orioles, I think their offense is going to be really, really exciting this year. The addition of Pete Alonso. Kobe Mayo looks pretty good this spring. He could definitely be kind of a breakout candidate there, a post-hype prospect for them. And on the pitching front, it's coming down to Kyle Bradish, Trevor Rogers again. I have Kyle Bradish. I have an article. Hopefully I can get it out in time. He's my bold prediction to win the AL Cy Young. I just really, really like his whole makeup. That slider is ridiculous. He's been dominant since that excellent 2023 season. It was unfortunate. They had a pretty big gap due to that elbow injury, but he's going to be super fun to watch. Trevor Rogers probably won't be as dominant as was last year. No pitcher in baseball can really sustain that, but it looks at least real enough. Like his spring, he's looking pretty sharp this spring. And again, just the addition of all the prospects, even like Trey Gibson might make his appearance. Kate Povich has kind of a new look to him this spring. Brennan Young, I still have some faith in him being kind of a back end starter there. Again, it's just looking at that bullpen. I think they have so many different options. It's now, can want these bullpen pieces to step up. Grant Wolfram is a guy that I kind of highlighted last week. I made a post about him saying that he's kind of an underrated reliever that I think was going to do really well this year. Looked pretty sharp this spring. Could be kind of that lefty reliever the Orioles need to kind of shore up their bullpen.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's nice to see 4 teams in the AL East all potentially being competitive. I mean, for so long it was Red Sox versus Yankees and this ESPN, covering it 24/7. So like, I'm kind of excited that it's going to be this kind of, beat 'em up who survives for the summer. And then we're getting into September and we're not just potentially just fighting for wild card spots, but we're fighting for who is going to win the AL East. So I'm excited for competitive baseball. And then once people get to October, it's a crapshoot. And like, you get hot at the right time, it's great. In the meantime, we've got a long season of competitive baseball that I'm looking forward to seeing across the AL East.
And as an Orioles fan, I'm really jealous of your guys' experience up there in Toronto of, taking advantage of the years that the Red Sox and Yankees were down while the Orioles just kind of kicked it into neutral and watched it happen. And I don't mean that in a backhanded way. Like the Blue Jays really not only did the most with their club as possible, but they did it at the right time. So it's been really been nice to watch, as an Orioles fan. Anybody that doesn't come out of New York and Boston, it's nice to see them do well.
So Thomas, can you give us a quick reminder of where we can find the site, where we can follow you, and maybe give a quick pitch to your Patreon channel as well in terms of supporting the great work that you do?
Yeah, so my work, tjstats.ca. I am Canadian, got to rep those Canadian domains there. I launched the site back in, I'd say, October 2025. And from then, I've just been growing it, working on it nonstop sometimes. From there, I created some custom player pages. You can go see it has StatCast data for the major leagues, the minor leagues. It has my pitching summaries, spring training. Everything is free to access right now. So again, if you see me post off on Twitter or Blue Sky or even my articles, you can find essentially all those apps that generate those graphics on my website. I have a whole suite of them there, a lot of free ones as well. There's a little bit of hockey stuff. If you're interested, I'll probably shy away from that later, but I have it there. So if you guys want to take a look at that. I have a Substack, which I share frequent posts, I would say, maybe more infrequent. I do most of my writing now on my website. Articles, hopefully I'm going to be sharing, I guess tomorrow, it should be out, or whenever this podcast is out. I'll have an article of some 10 exciting hitters, 10 hitters I like for 2026. I hope to follow that up with 10 pitchers I like, and then with some bold predictions. And hopefully I get to my rotation rankings. That was very popular last year. It's just I'm finding myself spending way too much time playing around with my website. It is really fun to get all these tools up and running again, kind of transferring my whole kind of Python apps, throwing them onto a website where they live natively so anyone can use them. I find that super fun. But again, tjstats.ca, if you want to support me on Patreon, that grants you ad-free access to my whole site. And then once the season starts, I'm going to start putting my apps behind a paywall. If you want to support me there, you can do it there. And again, there's a lesser tier if you don't want to pay too much. But again, I'm really excited for the 2026 season to start. It was great to be on the show with you guys today.
Thomas, really appreciate it. Maybe before we have another Orioles and Blue Jays series in the future, maybe we can get back together again and talk what we've seen so far for the season and gear up for a fun series between the Jays and the Orioles. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Don't be a stranger, and we look forward to talking to you in the future.
All right, Scotty, a fascinating dive into the world of statistics and, frankly, a more modern look at baseball, which is, thankfully, more mainstream. But let's discuss something a little bit more old school, and that is spring training with scouts and their notepads and the abacus machine. No,
most importantly, boys in shorts.
You and I just
boys in shorts.
Separate trips down to spring training. I don't know about you. I had a lovely time.
I had a lovely time too. This was my first time down in Sarasota, partaking in Ed Smith. Went with my wife, went with a 13-year-old. Learned a lot. There are certain things I will do differently next time I go. But what a absolute pleasure that stadium is, and what a great experience is to be at that facility.
Yeah. It's very fan friendly. It is, everything's small. It reminded me a little bit of Aberdeen in that way. The fact that you can see everything from wherever you want to sit. It was great.
Yeah, it almost kind of reminded me of almost like a D3 like college stadium, almost like super small, like super intimate, similar to a minor league stadium, but just, I don't know, like it's got like, again, with the architecture and stuff like that, it has like an old time vibe.
So I did a deep dive because I'm a nerd. Ed Smith Stadium was built in the late 80s. Mm-hmm. The Orioles were not the first, but one of the first tenants. I think they were there in the 91 season, or before the 91 season, before moving over to Fort Lauderdale. It's been rebadged a couple of times for different teams. The Orioles, or the Sarasota and the Reds, couldn't come to an agreement for a refurbishment of the stadium, so it went empty for a year in 2010. The Orioles signed a 30-year lease and made an agreement with the city of Sarasota to refurbish the stadium. And just as you indicated, it is a gorgeous baseball facility. And very recently, they invested in a new complex down there adjacent to the stadium. They've got indoor space. They've got outdoor space. It's a great time. And I know that spring training can also be the type of thing that is great for fans that are unlike me, in the fact that if you care about autographs, if you care about getting in there and rubbing elbows with the players, the best opportunity that you can possibly have to do that.
Yeah. The one thing that did surprise me, and again, this is probably my own cultural and ignorance in terms of researching it, but like when I think Sarasota, again, I think back to the Sarasota commercials, is the best way to describe it, where you've got this perfectly manicured white family in beach shorts and like beach shirts and stuff like that. And I will say, like, you can certainly find that in Sarasota, but you can certainly also find some lower income, seedier areas as well.
It's funny that you say the Sarasota commercials, because I just remember the one commercial that ran for 15 years straight.
I just have various adaptations in my head of it, is the best way to put it. So
we did have an interesting experience. It was me and my wife and my parents, my dad and my stepmom came. We had a great time. We were there from Thursday until Monday. We watched 3 ball games over the weekend. We melted a little bit. So we bought tickets in the sun. We were there on Friday, and I mean, they were good seats, but they were in the sun. And so on Friday during the game, Sarah and I went to the box office and we said, "Hey, I'm a little worried about my parents melting. Could you move us into the shade for tomorrow?" And the guy in the box office did a great job.
He's just like, "That's not a problem. We've got the senior button right here. We're just going to press the senior button, and it automatically transfers you from an area that has sun exposure to an area without sun exposure."
It did feel that way. But so he gave us physical paper tickets.
Wow.
I can't remember the last time I held a paper ticket. So we went to Saturday's game. It was great.
Did that cost you extra?
It did not.
Wow.
It was fantastic.
Wow.
In fact, I got money back in the deal. But then on Sunday morning, when I went to log in to the ballpark app for Sunday's tickets, it turns out that our hero in the box office had traded in Sunday's tickets. For Saturday. And so I was pretty worried about it. I called the Orioles box office as soon as they opened and was expecting to have a bad time.
Yep.
I don't want to say that I was geared up for a fight.
But sir, you had tickets for yesterday.
I was prepared.
You had 8 tickets yesterday. Why would we give you 4 tickets for today?
I was prepared for difficulty.
Yeah.
The incredibly helpful person that I spoke to at the box office took one look at the account, listened to my tale, and then said, "Oh, that makes sense. We can fix this."
Was your wife standing over your shoulder?
She was not. She was not. The big guns were not to be deployed in that moment. But I do, in all seriousness, want to give a huge shout out to the Baltimore Orioles. This is exactly the type of thing from a fan experience standpoint that will lead me to sing their praises and to fully encourage everyone I meet to make sure, if you can, to take a trip down to Sarasota to go see the Orioles at spring training. It was a wonderful weekend of baseball for us. And I'm very familiar with the and her islands part of the area, but we stayed in Sarasota proper rather than Siesta Key this time. It was the first time for me, and we had a great time. We ate and drank our way through the town.
Yep.
But it was very lovely. We had a great time.
Yeah, like I said, really enjoyed seeing your torso on Sunday's game.
Okay, so here's the thing. After having sung the praises of the Baltimore Orioles, they did have to move us two rows back, which means that I would have been in full view in my original seats.
I think the Orioles knew what they were doing.
Probably so. The most interesting part of that game, however, is not the fact that we were television adjacent. It's the fact that we were very, very close to Mike Elias. And Sarah's like, yeah, go talk to him. Go chat him up. Doesn't he know who you are? The answer, of course, is no. And if he did, I'd be escorted out of the building. But he was working.
You know, he can compare Exless.
he was.
Who are you following?
Oh, I thought you meant my June list.
Oh no.
But he was, he was working. He was busy. But Sarah did walk over and communicate that Henry wanted to make sure that he knew to say thanks on Henry's behalf for Pete Alonso. So we did that. But yeah, Sarasota was a lovely time, and I fully encourage it.
You're going to go back?
Oh yeah, I mean we were there in 2013. So now a full 12, 13 years later, we'll do it again. In another dozen or Baker's dozen years.
I have been informed by my 13-year-old that we need to go back every single year at this point.
I mean, I can't argue. Yeah. That's a point that cannot be argued.
So, yeah, but like I said, he wants to go back. We did fishing, we did baseball, and we did steak. So he said, I want to do that every single year.
I can't think of a single instance in which 13-year-olds are incorrect.
Yeah. But
and neither can they.
Yeah. As long as you keep their hands full, they're in good shape.
And that is our show. Remember that you can find this and our entire catalog of indispensable episodes at birdseyeviewbaltimore.com.
Bird's Eye View is available for download wherever you get your podcast, including incognito mode. Subscribe to that show on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, and many others. Please remember to rate and review the show. We appreciate the feedback, and it encourages other people to listen for the first time.
Come and get social with us. You can email us at contact@birdseyeviewbaltimore.com. Scotty, did you know that I ticked and talked from Sarasota?
And I grammed the Insta while I was in Sarasota.
Did it hurt?
It was weird.
It was weird.
Yeah. I was told by my 16-year-old daughter I did it all wrong.
Of course we did.
Yeah.
We're too old.
Yeah.
But the best way to find us is over at Orioles Blue Sky, where we are settling in very nicely, thank you very much. And we skeet at Bird's Eye View, BAL. And with that, Baltimore and beyond, and hey, a little bit into Sarasota, I'll bid you all a fond adieu.
Good night, Baltimore and Sarasota. Please be safe out there, and let's go O's.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.